Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how I did this bean stitch tone on tone design on this t-shirt. So I created this design in Embroidery Essentials and then I stitched it out on my machine. It's a very simple design, it's free, so you can put, the font is one design, the paw print's another, you can put whatever name you want to. If you want to know how I did it all and how you can recreate it, keep watching. First of all, I've got Embroidery Essentials open because that's the program I use to create my stitch files if I'm not doing them directly on my embroidery machine. So I went to Creative Fabrica. Now I'm not signed in, I am actually a member and I have done a blog post about this in the last few months. And basically I just went to creativefabrica.com. There will be a direct link in the accompanying blog post on my Apple Lover 53 website to the font I used and the design I used for this stitch out. And in the search box I typed machine embroidery bean stitch font, and this is what came up, these three designs, and they're all by the same designer. I didn't necessarily want all uppercase, and this one's too curly for me. I wanted something, as I say, really simple, and that's why I chose a bean stitch. So I chose this file and it shows you a picture of the font. Now the picture shows you upper and lower case, but when I downloaded this it's all lowercase. So that's just something to bear in mind. It tells you that this particular file is in the PES format only, so no other format other than PES, which is for a brother machine. Having said that, if you open this file in Embroidery Essentials, you should be able to save it in the format of your choosing for your embroidery machine. So I just click download and it drops into my downloads folder. And I did exactly the same with the other design that I'm going to be using on this project. So I've got the two files on my desktop. I've, as I say, opened Embroidery Essentials, I've gone to the properties and I've chosen a 4x4 hoop because my thinking for this design is I want it to be like a left chest design on a t-shirt. So not a big design, not centrally to the t-shirt, just like on the left chest if you like. I'm going to double click on the first folder and I'm going to, in this folder, I'm going to choose, there are several sizes. This is a dog paw print, by the way, but still in the bean stitch design. So in this particular folder, you've got several different formats for different machines and you've got several sizes. Because I'm only doing a left chest design, I want the smallest design, which is 2-inch. So I'm going to choose the 2-inch PES, and basically I'm going to click on it and drag it and drop it onto my Embrilliance mat. Okay, so that's the first design. Now I want to add Eddie's name underneath this. So in Embrilliance Essentials I went up to the text tool, which is the letter A at the top, and when you select it, it automatically puts ABC on the mat. I chose the text, and then down here on the right hand side you can see it says text ABC, and I'm just going to type Eddie and hit enter, and then underneath it says font, and I came and looked through all my fonts that I've got installed on Embroidery Essentials and there was nothing in a bean stitch. Okay, so I'm going to delete the word Eddie. So that's what set me off looking for a bean stitch on Creative Fabrica. Now, this font file, as I say, is only available in the PES format, which means there's no BX option. And a BX option is basically like when you go to a website on the internet and you get a font for your computer, and you download it and you install it and it then becomes available in any program that you open. Okay, so a BX font is kind of along those lines. Once you get a BX font, you download it, and then you'd normally just drag and drop the font like I've just done with the paw print into Embroidery Essentials, and then when you choose the text it will appear in this font section. But like I say, I've not got a bean stitch installed. So I'm going to double click to open this Creative Fabrica file that contains the bean stitch font. But like I say, this is only in the PES format. So basically what that means is there are several sizes. You'll see it says 1 in front of a lot, then it'll say 2. Then if I keep scrolling down, it says 3, and it goes all the way up to, it says 25, but that means 2.5. So I think this goes from like 1 to 3 inches. It will tell you on the Creative Fabrica page. So I just want the smallest text, but I've got to bring each one of these letters in one by one, because this is not a BX font. These are individual stitch files, which, you know, this is how we used to do it before BX fonts were invented. So it's no big deal. And, you know, if you're only doing it every now and again, it's simple to do. I wouldn't use a font like this if you were running a very busy embroidery business, because, you know, every time you went to personalize something, you'd have to drag in each letter one by one. But for the process of this exercise, it's perfectly fine. So I've got all the 1 inch chosen. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come to where it says 1 inch E, and I'm going to drag that onto my Embrilliance mat, and you'll see it there. Then I'm going to choose a D, and then I can duplicate that rather than drag 2 in, or I can drag a second one in, it doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to find the Y that's in the 1 inch and drag that onto my Embrilliance mat. So now I can close that folder down. So let's just go back to the middle of the screen and make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. So now if I select the letters, just move the little paw print out of the way. So now you can see I've got my bean stitch letters. So like I say, I could have dragged the D in twice, or I can select the D, do copy and paste, and that will put a copy directly on top. Okay, so now basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to line the EDD up as I think they're going to look right. I'm going to select just those 3. I'm going to come up to the align icon and align them all along the bottom and say apply and close. Now I might take the E, I'm going to choose the E, and I might just take it up a little bit. It's lining the bottom of the E up with the stroke at the bottom of the D. So I might just take it up just 1 notch using the arrows on my keyboard. And now I'm going to bring the Y in. And I didn't align the Y to the bottom because it would bring all these letters down to this baseline of the Y. So I want to kind of get the top of the Y basically around about the same height as this position on the D, like so, and get my spacing how I think it's going to look. Might just bring, using the arrows on my keyboard, bring the E over a little bit. So I think that looks okay. So I'm going to drag an imaginary box around everything, and I'm going to go up to the top of the page where you can't see, but I'm going to choose Edit and Group. Now with that selected, if you look here at the top, it's telling me it's 1 11/16 high and it's 2 5/8 of an inch wide. So I'm going to just drag it down ever so slightly, and then I'm going to bring in the paw print and then put the eddy underneath. Now bear in mind that down here in the bottom left hand corner I'm at 196% on the zoom. So I'm going to try and drag this box down and try and get that down to about 100%, which will give me a more realistic view of how this is going to look. So I'm going to click on the word eddy, which is groups, and I'm just going to use the arrows on my keyboard just to bring it down so it's just underneath the paw print. Now I'm going to select both. I'm going to come up to the align and I'm going to center them on the horizontal, say apply and close. So now they're lined up together. And then I'm just going to use this arrow here that says center design in hoop. So now both my elements are centered in the hoop. Okay, now I've already done this and already saved my stitch file, but it was after I'd done it, I just thought this is going to be a really quick stitch out. I might as well show you where I got the letters for the font and how I created the stitch file. So from here now in Embrilliance, I would go to the top of the page and I would come down and choose Save Stitch File As. I would give it a name. So by default, it says mydesign.pes. So I would click just before the dot and I would delete this. But for now, because I've already got one on my desktop called Eddie, I'm going to say My Eddie. And then from this drop down box down here, this is where you can change it to the format for your machine. I'm going to leave mine on PES because that's the format that I use. But as far as I'm aware, you should be, if you use a Janome, you should be able to change this to JEF and save your stitch file as a JEF. Okay, I'm just going to leave mine as PES. So if you use a Brother, it's PES, and I would hit save. And I'm saving it on my desktop just so I know where it is. And that's going to put that stitch file that I've just created, my Eddie PES, on my desktop. Okay, now I'm not going to use that one because I say I've already done it in the other one and got the size I want and the position I want and everything. So now I'm going to go over to my embroidery machine. I'm going to drag my file onto a USB stick, which I've not got here to put in my computer at the moment. And then I'm going to go over to my embroidery machine and I'm going to stitch this out. But in the next part of the video, I'm going to show you how I'm going to line it up and position it on my t-shirt. Now, one thing I have forgot, which I've done in my original file, is one of my, let's just zoom this out again so it's a little bit bigger. So I'm not making the design bigger, I'm just making the view on the screen bigger. So one of my subscribers left a comment under one of my other videos where I'd been using an embroidery file, saying that you can put a basting box around your design directly in Embrilliance Essentials. So if I use a basting box, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically a box around a design that's in like really, really big stitches. And it holds, if you're floating something in your hoop or if you're using a water-soluble stabilizer, it's just a stitch that it will put around it that will kind of hold your water-soluble or, you know, your design. If you, like I say, if you're floating a t-shirt or you're floating a towel, it will hold it in the hoop so it doesn't move. And it puts really big stitches so that they're easy to pull out at the end once the design is stitched. I always print my design when I'm in Embrilliance because it helps with lining up. And again, to do that, you would go to the top of the page and choose File and Print. And it will bring up your print dialog box. And you just, you know, choose your print dialog box and it gives you a to scale printout of what you're going to stitch. So you can see here I've got the paw print and the name, and I'm not sure how well you can see this. I'll try and zoom in if I can, but it puts a crosshair in the middle and then it puts a faint vertical line at the top and bottom of your design and a horizontal line on the left and right of your design. Okay, and that's what I usually go off. And if you've followed my channel or if you go to the sewing playlist, you'll see where I've printed off previous designs. And what I normally do when I've printed it off, I normally kind of look where the top of the design is and I fold over, or I put it in my trimmer and I trim it. Now if I just cancel that. So what Susan said was, if you go up to utility while you're still in Embrilliance, you can choose based design and it will put the based design around it. And then when you go to File, Print, it will print the based design for you. So that helps with, it saves the guesswork out of you folding over your paper to try and make sure that you're getting your print out, you know, at the true size for going on your product. It just means you can put this in your paper trimmer and cut directly on that baseline. And then once you've got, I'll just cancel that. And then once you've got that cut out, it makes it a lot easier for lining up on, in my case, like a t-shirt, or if you're putting it on a towel or whatever. So that was a tip that Susan pointed out to me, that, you know, even if I'm not going to stitch the baseline, I can print it out first, then I can select it and delete it, and then I can send the stitch file over to my machine. And if I don't want to stitch the basting stitch, I don't have to. If I decide I want a basting box around my design when I get to my machine, on my embroidery machine, you can just put one in. But I thought that was a good tip and worth pointing out to anybody. Mark my placement. Again, I don't know whether I've got this right or not, but that's roughly going to be the centre of my design. And I think you can probably see through on the screen that I've already ironed on the back a piece of iron-on tearaway. So this is the same combination that I used for the black t-shirt I posted on my channel that had the mouse head design with the rhinestone scatter. So I've got iron-on tearaway ironed onto the back of the t-shirt. I'm going to use my 4x4 hoop for this one because it's only a small design. Again, I think in the last one I used my bigger hoop. I've got a piece of cutaway stabilizer in my hoop, and I've got my design. So I'm just going to bring in my trimmer, and I can see the black line. So I'm just going to trim that off. I can get a bit closer if I want to. Like so. You could do this with scissors, you don't need a paper trimmer. And then once I've got, you know, one edge done, I can see where the basting line is. I'm going to line it up so the basting line is not directly in the middle of the trimmer. You know, I may leave a bit of the basting box in place, because this is only a guide to show you where to put it on your t-shirt. As I say, I've already put my little sticker on. So that's all scrap, can be thrown away. So this is what you're left with. If you forget to put the basting box on, don't worry, I've never put it on to print it out before, but this is what you're left with. So now this is my sticker, and the middle of my sticker should be the middle of my design. So again, now if I want to, I can fold that on the fold line. So I've got an idea of where that is. Let me just fold it this way. So I'm just folding it on the horizontal and vertical line that Embrilliance puts in. And that's roughly where the design now should be. So if I fold that in half, that's half of my placement circle on the vertical and the horizontal. So it should go there. So if I just put a little bit of tape on that now, then I can hoop this and get this over to my machine. I'm going to float the t-shirt, by the way. I'm not actually hooping the t-shirt. And we'll see if this works. As I say, I've never done a left chest embroidery design before. So that's why I'm using an older t-shirt. And it has been ironed. It's been washed and ironed. It doesn't look as though it has at the moment because I've been turning it inside out. But how I came across my placement, I folded my t-shirt down the middle and I ironed a marking. And then I just came down from the seam here of the collar. I've come down about 6.5 inches to the centre line. And from the middle of my t-shirt, I've come over, I think it was 4, something like that. So over 4, down 6.5, which is the halfway point of my design. Ironed on my tearaway fusible on the back. Hooped up my cutaway in the hoop, and now I'm going to line this up in the hoop and put it in the machine and hopefully stitch it out tone on tone in this pink isocord thread. So I'll go over to the machine and we'll see what happens next. Okay, so I've sprayed the cutaway stabilizer with some of the 505 spray. I've turned the t-shirt inside out and I've folded it on this horizontal line, and I'm trying to line this horizontal line up with the vertical and horizontal line that I've drawn on my stabilizer, okay? And then I'm just going to press that down, and then I'm going to take this all over to the machine and find my placement on my machine and then stitch it out. So the t-shirt is inside out in the hoop looking like this, and all this is going to stay outside away from the needle, hopefully. So I've got my USB stick plugged into the side of my sewing machine. I use a Brother Innovis V5 LE. I'm in the UK. In different parts of the world, I think this may be similar to the 5200, but I'm not sure. But I always say that because I remember seeing somebody use a machine that looks more or less identical to this one time, and she said that was what it was called. So I'm going to go into embroidery. I'm going to go into my USB stick and find my little bean stitch, which is here on screen. I'm going to put my 4x4 hoop into the sewing machine. I've already got it threaded up. So I'm just going to work all this t-shirt and the frame under the presser foot and slide the frame into place. I'm going to get all the t-shirt out of the way, and then I'm going to hit embroidery on the bottom of the screen. That centres the design in the middle of my hoop. I can see that the needle is not over the middle, so I'm going to use the arrows on my machine to move it over. And down. Okay, so that should be centre. So now I'm going to remove the masking tape from my design. So now it's just a case of putting my water soluble stabilizer down. I could stitch a basting stitch to hold that in place, but as I say, this is such a simple design, I'm hoping that I don't need it. Trying to keep all the t-shirt out of the way. I'm going to put the foot down. In fact, I'll just move that for a minute. I'm just going to do a trace. Yeah, that looks fine. So now I'm going to pop this back in. This water-soluble topper is only to stop the stitches from sinking into your t-shirt. So let's see what happens. Let's press go. So I just held the topper in place just for the first couple of stitches so that it didn't move. As I say, this is going to be a tone on tone, so I've no idea what this is going to look like. Never done tone on tone before. Don't often do a lot of embroidery on clothing, as you'll know. But I will link to the one I did on my channel recently. I'm not sure when you're going to see this video, but I did do a black t-shirt, so I'll link to that at the end of this video, and you can go and have a look at that. And I did that in the big hoop, which obviously gives you a bit more room, but I decided as this was only a tiny design, I'd try my 4x4 hoop. I'll link on the screen, you'll see my website. It's always linked directly under the YouTube video. And for all my YouTube videos, there's always an accompanying blog post. So if you go to my Apple Lover 53 website, select the blog tab and look for the picture of this finished project. In the description of that blog post, I'll link to where I got the paw print from and where I got the font letters from. And at the beginning of this video, you should have seen me explaining how I set all this up in Embrilliance Essentials. So it stopped because I've got two different colours on screen, so I'm just going to put the foot down and carry on. So it's done the name, it's now just going to do the actual paw print. So as I say, because I'm using a bean stitch, it's a very, very quick stitch out. It says it's 2 minutes. I could have set both colours the same in Embrilliance and then it wouldn't have stopped. Okay, so that's it finished. So I'm going to take it out of the hoop, go back to my other desk, and this is where we find out if I've stitched the t-shirt together. So take the USB out of the machine so I can put that on one side. I always forget to move my microphone back. So here it is. So I'm going to unhoop it, and I always use this little hoop screwdriver that came with my machine because trying to unscrew these sometimes can be a bit of a devil. So I'm going to take the hoop off, put that on one side. So this is the cutaway stabiliser that you see here first. So I'm just going to fold that as close to the edge as I can and cut that away without going through my t-shirt. And the one underneath is the fusible tear away. So I can tear that away as close to the, you know, edge of the design. Obviously I fused it down, but you can pull it away easily. So I can go back in and tidy up these, you know, cutaway bit, the corners, so it's not as, and then I'm just going to pull the water-soluble topper away. I saw a neat trick for removing this stuff as well. If you spray it with water and then get your waste and put it over, rub it on and pull it off, it brings all the bits out, but I've not got any water handy. Pull the bits out. They are pulling out easily, to be fair, because the stitches, it's only like cling wrap, this stuff, and the stitches, you know, puncture it. So I'll pull the rest of this out and then I'll come back. Okay, so there it is. I've picked all the water-soluble stabiliser out of it, I think, although I've just spotted one tiny little bit there. I'll get that in a bit. Give it a little press over the design. I'm not sure how well you're going to see it, but I'll try and get some pictures of it, some better pictures of it for the photos. But basically I've got the paw print, I've got the word Eddie, and it's all tone on tone. I'll obviously have to try it on and see what the placement's like. But that was just a simple little project which I just thought I'd show you how to do. As I say, there will be links within my blog post telling you where you can get the design and the font so that you can add your own pet name. Anyway, I hope you like that. Please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.